Good morning. Yes, it is Kentucky Derby Day, and this is why I look like I do. Party and mint juleps, and it's going to be a great day. But first, I wanted to bring you something that happened to me yesterday, and it was a very important show that I watched, and it brought me to tears. Opioid addiction, we know, is very serious, and yet sometimes you see people coming on TV, especially in my hometown, where our local news station has been doing a series on opioid addiction in our community. And it's very serious. But yet, just last week, there were people who have been on opioids, Vicodin, Oxycontin, oxycodone, codeine, Percocet, Demerol, for decades. They take these pills every single day, and they say it is to control chronic pain, and it very well might be. And they came on and said, no, wait a minute. You people are all screaming your heads off about these addictive drugs, but these drugs make me live a normal life. And that's fine. I'm not going to try to diagnose somebody else's pain or their pain threshold or challenge their doctors even. But yesterday afternoon, I watched a documentary on HBO, and it was called Warning, This Drug Will Kill You. And the people that were in this documentary, they were not chronic pain sufferers. Okay, they did not have fibromyalgia. They did not have chronic back pain. They didn't have chronic anything. And at the age where they became addicted, this is what really threw me back and made me go, the age they became addicted to these painkillers and then switched to heroin when they could no longer get the painkillers was astounding. A cyst removal, kidney stones, minor dental procedures, menstrual cramps. These are the things that afflicted the people who were portrayed in this documentary. At 15 years old, this one young woman got kidney stones, and they're very painful. They are. And her doctor prescribed opioids. I think it was Oxycontin, or it might have been, it was actually, I think, Vicodin. But it was an opioid for her kidney stones. And when she started to feel better, her sister had menstrual cramps. And her sister said, my cramps are so terrible, can I take one of your Vicodin? And because it was prescribed by a doctor, right? It's got to be safe. Even their parents were like, yeah, sure, why not? So her sister took Vicodin for menstrual cramps. And that's how it started. These two young teenagers at 15, 16, 17 years old, they found out that they didn't feel good at all if they didn't take the opioid, the painkiller, every day, or 3 or 4 times a day. And then it just escalated. And the first sister was abusing, but the second sister, just for taking Vicodin for menstrual cramps, became so severely addicted that it killed her. She overdosed, and she died. And you would think that was a wake-up call for her sister, but the power that these prescription drugs that doctors give out like candy bars on Halloween for very minor procedures, like a cyst removal, like a dental procedure, kidney stones. They are killing our children. They are turning our teenagers into drug addicts. This sister, whose sister had already OD'd and died, she had everything going for her. She did manage to stop taking the pills for a while. She had a home. She had an in-ground swimming pool. She had a husband and a beautiful child. And within maybe 2 or 3 years, she lost everything. Because the pool of these opioids came back. Her kidney stones came back. The doctor prescribed more Vicodin. She continued to take it. And when the doctor said, well, your kidney stones are gone, you don't need the Vicodin anymore, she switched to heroin. And within 2 years, she lost her beautiful home and her in-ground pool and her family. And as of the end of the documentary, she had relapsed yet again. She had OD'd, relapsed, been in rehab, relapsed again, and there's just no cure. These drugs grab you, and they are so much more powerful than cocaine, and I know cocaine. I've had experience with cocaine. These drugs are more powerful. And what makes them so scary is that it starts out because a medical professional gives you these drugs and says, it's okay. Going to make you feel better. Take these drugs. And these children are dying. Children. The one young man had a cyst removed when he was 17. And the doctor prescribed good old opioids, Oxycontin, and the kid got hooked. Kid got hooked. And his parents did everything they could to help him. He went to rehab. He came back. He was clean. He was doing well. Until the night that he OD'd on heroin. I don't know what it is about these drugs because I don't take them. I feel very blessed today. And again, some of you might say, well, she doesn't understand real pain. Well, yeah, any of you who knew me last year this time, actually it was today, this weekend, my mouth blew up. I had a double severe abscess in 2 of my front teeth. I thought my head was going to explode. I had no opioids in the house, thank God. And I made it. I made it through. I did a lot of drinking. I used a lot of Ambisol and peppermint oil and clove oil on my gums, and I was miserable, but I survived. I'm alive. And it was interesting because when I got to the dentist, because this was a weekend, when I got to the dentist Monday morning and they did 2 double root canals that were going to turn out, they were going to be open for 6 months because the abscess was so bad, it had to be drained. He put me on antibiotics, and then of course he asked, did I want a prescription for Vicodin? And I said, no, I'm okay. What's interesting about a root canal, yes, the abscess was painful, but once it gets drained, it's no longer painful. And a root canal, the very purpose of a root canal is you remove all the nerves from the teeth, from the gums and the teeth. So once the root canal part and the place where they stuck the Novocaine needle in heals, you shouldn't have that extreme pain. And after the pain I had gone through that previous weekend, the minor pain that I went through for the next week to recover from the root canal and the Novocaine needles, which are actually worse than the actual root canal, it was nothing. Nothing that 2 Aleve, over-the-counter Aleve, every morning and every evening before bed, and some good booze healed all. And of course, my wonderful peppermint oil, which my god sister Tara turned me on to. And these oils are amazing. You put a little clove oil on your teeth, and in fact, the dentist packed my root canal, my abscess, with clove because it's so healing. You don't need the opioids. You don't need, when you have a cavity filled or a tooth pulled, you don't need these drugs. And I think something else that saved my life is the fact that I did take a Vicodin once in my entire life, and it made me so sick and so scared. I could feel my heart beating in my ears. I thought I was going to have to go to the ER and have my stomach pumped. One Vicodin. And I am so glad that unlike some of these people who take their first Vicodin or their first Oxy and love the feeling, I hated that feeling. I said, my God, I never want to feel like this again. I could not move. I literally could not get up. I was sitting on that sofa back there and I couldn't move. And I was shaking and I was sweating and I was so scared. That's one Vicodin on me. And I think I am very grateful for that experience, because now whenever anybody offers me a Vicodin or something, I'll be like, you know what, I can handle it. I am the kind of girl that actually had her crown drilled down with no Novocaine. My husband recently just had a filling done with no Novocaine. The dentist was shocked. But in our house, we don't like these kind of drugs. Yes, we drink alcohol and I smoke cigarettes, but these kind of drugs, man, they're dangerous. And last week, we talked about Narcan, which is this drug that's supposed to help cure heroin addicts. Well, let me tell you this, and this is from the documentary from HBO. Narcan actually increases your cravings for the heroin. Many people who OD on heroin are brought back to life. Their lives are saved by Narcan. But according to this documentary, the Narcan actually makes the cravings and the withdrawal symptoms worse. It's a devious, very hard to kick. If you know someone who is addicted to alcohol, addicted to cigarettes, addicted to anything, but then you meet someone who is addicted to these drugs, it is 20,000 times worse. They call your name. You cannot function in your daily life without them. And trying to kick the habit of popping these pills every day and then switching to the heroin habit, the heroin is the worst. Even after you complete your rehab, that heroin calls your name. And they relapse, and then they die. On a personal note, watching this documentary and crying with these parents, and I have never been a parent, but I had a parent. I had a very overprotective mother, and with Mother's Day coming next week, and I don't have a mother to celebrate on that day. I have a beautiful mother-in-law, which I will celebrate on Mother's Day. She's lovely, but she's not, my mom. My mom passed away in 2004, as many of you know. She was murdered in a medical facility. So, watching the one story where the father said he was there when his baby girl was born. Her name was Georgia. And all the hopes and the dreams that he had for her. And then because of a stupid accident where she had pain and doctors prescribed her these opioids, and then she went from that to heroin, and now he visits her in a cemetery. And it made me think of my mom, because my mom and I mean, even as an adult, she was hovering. She was a helicopter mom. I was in my 20s, and I would go out for the evening, and my mom would not go to bed till I was back in this house. If I would call her and say, Mom, I hooked up. I'm not coming home tonight. Oh, I would get a tirade. And I was so angry with her. So angry. I'm like, I'm an adult now. I have my own job. I have my own money. Why are you still trying to control me? And now, after watching this documentary, I get it. Because I was doing things I probably shouldn't have done, and I'm very lucky that I survived my 20s. I did a lot of bad things. I did illegal drugs. I did go home. I would meet a nice guy at a bar, or I thought he was a nice guy, and I would go home with him. Why not? I was young. I was single. He was single. He was cute. But now I know why my mom was always so afraid when she didn't know where I was, even as an adult. Because she loved me. She loved me more than she loved herself. And she would have laid down her life for me. And she had dreams and hopes for me. And they weren't that I would be found raped and murdered by a stranger I met in a bar, or that I would be in a situation where I was either arrested for drug use or OD'd on drugs. My mom didn't want that phone call because it would have killed her. It is completely illogical to bury your child. It makes no sense. And no matter how old your child is, you always see them as that little person that you brought home in your arms and that you had all these hopes and dreams for. And in the case of this documentary, these parents, they didn't do anything wrong. Their children were not wild children running around doing drugs with their friends. They went to a doctor, and a doctor gave them these drugs. And the parents were like, well, if the doctor says it's okay, it's okay. So for all of you out there who want to defend painkillers, Vicodin, Oxycontin, codeine, those who depend on it to live a normal life and have your bodies have become accustomed to it and you think you're doing fine, good for you. I'm not trying to take your drugs away from you. But part of me wants to say, because I actually do have a high pain threshold, man up. Surgery is painful. Having a tooth pulled is painful. It doesn't last all that long. Figure it out. Get over it. Take the Aleve. Take the ibuprofen. Take the Tylenol. Refuse the opioid. You don't need it. You really don't. You're stronger than that. And you parents out there who take your children to the dentist or they get rushed to the hospital for appendix or something, talk to the doctors. If the doctor says, well, here's some Oxycontin for the next couple of days, say to the doctor, wait a second. Will anything else help? Maybe like a warm pack on the incision site or where the sutures are, or over-the-counter medication like Tylenol or ibuprofen. Maybe we'll do that instead. Don't assume that the doctors necessarily have your child's best interest at heart. And if you have a chance to see this show on HBO, warning, this drug will kill you. It's an hour, and it goes really fast. I couldn't believe it was over when it was over. That's how fast it goes. It is so powerful. And these people are real people. And there is something I did want to read to you. Here's the thing. And we don't like nanny government on this show. We really don't. But in this situation, from all the personal stories we've heard, the government might have something here. Guidelines are warning physicians and patients that opioids are not meant for long-term use. Anybody using opioids for more than 5 days will become, or possibly will become, addicted to them. 5 days, that's it. How many of you have been given a bottle with 12 pills? 12 Vicodin, 10 Vicodin. You're supposed to take one every 4 hours for so many days, or whatever. One every 6 hours. 5 days. 3 days, in some cases, is all it takes to become addicted to these drugs. I'm not sure I get it, because I've taken a Vicodin, and I don't get it. Cocaine was a lot more fun. Let me just say that. But I don't get why the opioid turns into heroin. I don't understand that necessarily. Here is what the guidelines are for use for these opioids. They should only be used very short term. basically like the day after surgery, when the anesthesia wears off and all the numbing stuff wears off, one day. And then you start using the over-the-counter stuff. The only time when opioids should be used long-term is for end-of-life. Terminal patients. People who are going to die anyway and are in such horrific pain, it doesn't matter if they get addicted to them because they're dying anyhow. But for a 15-year-old with kidney stones, a 16-year-old with menstrual cramps, and a 17-year-old that has a cyst removed, or somebody who has a root canal or a filling filled or a tooth pulled, really? There was a story on my local news about a young woman who had her wisdom teeth pulled, and they prescribed her Vicodin. And her mother was very concerned. Very concerned. Because she's 17 years old. I had my wisdom teeth removed under anesthesia in the hospital, and nobody prescribed me Vicodin. I was 17. That was a long time ago. That was in 1982. I'm sorry, 83. I went into the hospital. They cut out I had stitches. Nobody gave me Vicodin. They said, go home, take some aspirin, get some rest, gargle with salt water. And I lived. I made it. I don't know what would have happened, since I do sort of kind of have an addictive personality, if they had given me Vicodin or Oxycontin back in 1983. I don't know what would have happened to me. But I do know my mother would have been fine with me taking it because it was prescribed by a doctor. And I've done shows about this before. And I want to remind all of you again, it is okay to say no to a doctor. No, thank you. I don't think I need that. Why are you prescribing this? I really don't think it's right for me. You don't have to accept their drugs. Just like we have choices when we're walking down the street and there's a drug dealer on the corner. You can just keep walking. You also have the right to do that with a licensed medical doctor. You can say, no, thank you. I don't need that. I will go home and I will medicate in my own way. I don't want an opioid. I don't want a Vicodin or an Oxycontin or a Demerol or a Percocet. Percocet, very, very powerful. If any of you out there are being prescribed Percocet for something that is minor, please throw it in the trash. Flush it down the toilet. Or just don't fill the prescription. Percocet is so potent. And again, remember the title of the show. The documentary. Warning, this drug will kill you. Not may cause this or may do that. It will kill you. Because too many people get hooked on it from the very first pill. And we can do a whole other show. And if any of you have some ideas or know anybody who works in the pharmaceutical industry, yeah, they're great for healing pain and making you feel numb. And I guess that's what makes it so addictive. People feel numb. And they feel like, well, nothing's going to bother me now because I'm on these pills. And if I stop taking them, I'm going to start feeling things again. And I don't want to feel things. Excuse me. Why not talk to the pharmaceutical companies who make these killers, these poisons, and say, is there no way to put the pain-relieving ingredient in this pill without the addictive part? And again, I'm not a pharmacist. I have no idea what is in these painkillers that make them so addictive that they call your name even after you stop taking them. You want to go back to taking them. I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that. I do know that 1 in 5 people prescribed these opioids will become addicted to them, and that too many people are dying. 91 people every day, today, While we people who are so lucky and blessed to not be on prescription medication for anything are going to enjoy the Kentucky Derby. We're going to enjoy our mint juleps. We're going to hope the horse we bet on wins. We're going to eat a lot of great food and then probably be nauseous tomorrow because we ate all this great food. We're blessed. But today, while you're watching your Kentucky Derby and sipping your mint julep, 91 Americans are going to lose their lives to opioid addiction. It is the #1 killer of young Americans. It surpasses gunshot and it surpasses car accident. It is the #1 killer. Whatever it is in these prescription drugs that a doctor gives you and you think it's cool because it's legal and a doctor gave it to you that leads you to losing everything you have to grab your next bag of heroin. The one girl is like, I would never put a needle in my arm, but boy, she was sticking a needle in her arm by the end of the documentary. Whatever is in these drugs that makes that happen, they need to be taken out. That ingredient, we worry about salt and trans fat in our diets and that our kids are not getting, they're getting whole fat milk at school for lunch. And yet we have these drugs that doctors are giving us and we're taking them because the doctor says it's okay. And there is something in those drugs that could turn us into heroin addicts. Think about that. Ask yourself, is there anything right about that? And remember, especially you people out there who still are blessed to have your mom, moms they love their children with every breath in their body, and they would give their last breath to save their child. So if you have a helicopter mom, even as an adult like I did, and you hate her guts, and you're just, oh my God, really, Mom? Send her a really nice card and a really big, nice box of something, chocolates, big flowers, something, next Sunday on Mother's Day, and tell her how much you appreciate her for caring enough about you and worrying enough about you. She would give her life for you. And it seems like only after they're gone that you realize that and you appreciate it. So happy Kentucky Derby Day, everybody. And remind yourselves when you turn on the Kentucky Derby tonight or you're attending your parties that 91 Americans will not survive the day. They will be dead by the time the run for the roses is over. As they put that rose wreath around that horse, the winning horse this evening, 91 Americans will be dead. And it all started with a doctor and a legal prescription. Political Paula, out.